right, good morning everybody, or good afternoon, or whatever time you are getting ready to watch this video. Today we are going to be doing picture representations of mixed numbers and improper fractions. Now, mixed numbers and improper fractions are extremely important. So what I'm going to do today is just teach you how these two are related to one another. And we're going to look at them through picture representation. Now, starting tomorrow, we'll actually look at the math part of converting them or changing them from mixed numbers to improper and improper to mixed numbers. So today, let's just get a good understanding of what they even mean. So what are mixed numbers and what are improper fractions? Well, if you have that paper that I told you yesterday to have out handy, if you see toward the bottom here, we have a definition of mixed numbers. Mixed numbers are fractions that are made up of a whole number and a fraction. And improper fractions are fractions where the numerator is larger than the denominator. And I believe whenever we were talking about our vocabulary for fractions, we did discuss improper fractions, and I think you guys understood that. But let's take a look at what all this really means. Now I'm just gonna have you just listen to me just for a few minutes. I'm gonna try to explain some things about what a mixed number is. So I'm gonna move over to this slide, and this one says whole numbers. Now, if you can remember, back at the beginning of the school year, we learned that whole numbers were numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 1 million. And they were numbers that did not have fractions or decimals. And then you know a fraction is anything like 1/2, 2/3, 4/6, and so on and so forth. All kinds of fractions out there. So basically, a mixed number is kind of like what it sounds like. When you mix something, you take two of two different things, or more, but in this case two, and we're going to combine them together. Kind of like if you are mixing up a salad and you put some things together, you're mixing them together. So we're going to take a whole number and a fraction, and we're going to lump them together, and it's going to look like something like this. So you have a 2, which is a whole number, and then you have a fraction like 3/5, and when we put them together, it'll say 2 3/5. So that's going to be a mixed number. Now, the whole number could be any whole number, and the fraction could be any fraction. It depends on what the picture is or what we're talking about. So what exactly does that mean? It basically means you have, in this particular problem, 2 3/5. It means you have 3 figures. 2 of them are complete, means they're completely shaded in, and 1 is not. So let's take a look at some of these examples of mixed numbers, and let's see how we do. So this first one, you might want to go ahead and get a sheet of paper. You can pause me for a second. Get a sheet of paper if you would like, so that you can write some things down, okay? Now, if we look at this, it says mixed numbers. Mixed numbers is a number that has a whole number part and a fractional part. Example, what mixed number represents the shaded parts of these figures? So we have 3 figures, just like I told you just a few minutes ago, 2 3/5. So basically what we see is that we have 3 figures, and each of those figures are broken up into fifths, because whatever, I'm going to slip my paper over here, whatever the denominator is how many pieces all of the shapes are cut into. So we have 3 figures here, 2 of which are completely shaded in. That gives us our 2 wholes. And then the third picture has 3 shaded in of the 5. So it says how many whole figures are shaded? 2. How many parts of the third figure are shaded? 3 out of 5. You write this as the fraction 3/5, which we know that would be 3/5 if we were just looking at a picture. So the mixed number here is going to be 2 3/5, because you have 2 wholes shaded, and then your third picture only has 3/5. So let's take a look at this one. You know, sometimes when we are at family gatherings or whatever, we might have pies or pizzas out and people take pieces out of certain ones. And then at the end, you might see a grandparent or your mom or even you maybe putting those things back together, taking pieces and putting them into other containers just to kind of save space. So here, this is popcorn, and you know, a lot of times around Christmas time, we get these popcorn containers that are broken up into thirds. And it wants us to find out how many whole tins of popcorn can be made with the amount that's left. When I have a picture representation like this, I'm not just going to be able to say, oh, I know how many that is. What I want to do is I want to take what's left and start putting it into other pictures. So that means I can take this leftover and put it here, and then that would create one whole. And then I can take this one leftover and I can put it over here, and that would create another whole. So it says how many whole tins of popcorn can be made with the amount that's left over here? Well, we have 1 and 1, that's 2, and I apologize, my printer did not work very well. It says write a mixed number that tells you how much popcorn is left altogether. Well, that's kind of difficult because there's nothing else left over. It creates 2 whole, but it asks us to create a mixed number. So, what am I going to do here? Well, I think probably what we're going to need to do is we need to keep a whole number, and then we need to change one of our whole numbers into a fraction so that we have a whole number and a fractional piece. So if I have 1 whole, and then my other whole is broken up into 3 parts. And when I moved that over there, that meant I had 3 parts shaded. So that fraction is actually 3/3. So that is my mixed number, 1 3/3. That was a little bit tricky. That won't always happen. A lot of times we will be making a whole, and then you'll have an actual piece left over that will create another type of fraction. So a mixed number, again, is going to be a whole number and a fraction. We're going to keep moving. We're in my dining room here, and we're going to work on a few of these. So before I go up and do this, I would like to maybe take a look at these. So here I have an example of 2 shapes. One is completely shaded in and the other one isn't. That means I'm going to have a mixed number because I have a whole thing shaded and one that's not. So my goal is to basically figure out how many are whole. There's 1. And then what would be my fraction? 1, 2, 3 is my numerator out of 5. And you'll notice that both of these are cut into 5 pieces. This one's completely shaded. This one is not. Looking at number 6, I have 2 whole figures that are shaded. That's going to be my whole number. And then my third picture that's not completely shaded in will be my fraction. So that's going to be 2 out of 6. So that's 2 and 2, 6. Let's look at the next question. I have 2 whole shaded, and then my third picture has 2 out of 4 shaded. So there's going to be my mixed number, 2 whole and 2/4. This last one has 3 pictures, and it looks a little bit like the popcorn, okay? So I need to see if I can move any of these around to create a whole fraction. It looks like I can maybe move this one over to here, and then I can kind of just get rid of that, all right? So that creates 1 whole, and then here's my fraction piece, 1 out of 3. So that is 1 and 1/3. Again, if I have multiple pictures and they're not all shaded in, I can move some of the shaded pieces to some of the other pictures to create a whole thing. And this last one here, number 9, I have 1, 2, 3 shaded. And on my last one, it's broken up into 6 pieces and 1 is shaded. So that is 1, 1, sixth. So 3 1/6. Okay, so that's how we can use a picture to help us come up with our mixed number. I'm gonna go back up here. This is kind of where I wanted to wait a minute until we got to do this. But here, they want us to actually draw a picture for each of these mixed numbers. And sometimes we get a little confused because when we see our whole number, we think that's the amount of figures we should draw. But actually, if I have a whole number and a fraction, that means I need to also include a picture for my fraction. So for number 3 here, I'm actually going to draw 4 shapes so that I can shade in 3 of them and 1 of them can be used for my fraction. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to try to do this with my left hand. I'm going to draw circles for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, I'm drawing 4. I'm trying my very best to make them all congruent, the same size and the same shape, but it's a little difficult. So anyway, I'm going to now break them up into how many pieces, guys? Look at that denominator. So each of these are going to be broken up into 12 pieces. So we're going to start off by doing this. There gives us 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That should give me 12. Twelve again. And